Tense confrontation continues at a Hong Kong university campus despite the school president's appeal to try to defuse the situation. Unions warn they will intensify their strike across South Africa's aviation sector. And UNHCR says it's facing a funding shortfall in Ethiopia. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. In business, Ethiopia Airlines puts Boeing 737 MAX orders on hold. And in sports, thousands fill the streets of Addis Ababa for this year's Great Ethiopian Run. Hong Kong's High Court has ruled that banning protesters from wearing face masks is unconstitutional. The ruling came as violence has increased over the past week, with at least 2 killed in protest-related activities, and schools all over Hong Kong suspended. The prohibition of face-covering regulation was invoked last month by Chief Executive Carrie Lam. She said it was aimed at deterring protesters from violence and to restore order. It's based on the Emergency Regulation Ordinance, which gives the chief executive power to make laws in times of emergency. Similar laws have been implemented in the US, UK and Canada. Hong Kong police have appealed to everyone inside the Polytechnic University to drop their weapons and dangerous items, remove gas masks and leave in an orderly manner. Police said protesters should follow instructions and must not charge at police cordons. Earlier, protesters throwing Molotov cocktails set fire to an armoured police vehicle outside the campus. Police were trying to clear a bridge above the Cross Harbour Tunnel, where protesters took cover behind umbrellas and set fire to debris. The police have denied raiding the university campus in a statement, but they also warned protesters that officers may start using live ammunition if protesters continue with dangerous acts. Schools have been officially closed since late last week, and the Education Bureau says they'll stay closed on Tuesday due to safety concerns. Principals from 5 universities have jointly called on protesters for restraint and have urged students to leave the scene. Well, the president of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, Tang Jianguang, is also urging protesters to leave the campus.
Protesters on the PolyU campus. I have been communicating closely with the police since last evening. We have now received the assurance of police of a temporary suspension of the use of force under the condition that if the protesters do not initiate the use of force, the police will not initiate the use of force. In addition, we have also received permission from the police for you to leave the campus peacefully, and I will personally accompany you to the police station to ensure that your case will be fairly processed.
While many protesters refuse to leave the campus of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, some have been detained by police as they try to flee. Our correspondent Zhu Dan has the details.
Well, police detained dozens of people in the area of Hong Han near the Polytechnic University on Monday morning. At least 40 people were detained on Science Museum Road at around 9:30 a.m. Earlier, hundreds of masked rioters and police officers remained locked in a standoff at Polytechnic University following almost a day of unprecedented clashes. Police also confirmed that officers fired 3 live rounds in Jinsha around 3 a.m. on Monday, some 3 hours after issuing a warning that officers will retaliate with bullets if protesters continue attacking them with lethal weapons. On Sunday night, police urged everyone to leave the campus or risk taking part in the riot, and have warned protesters that officers may start using live ammunition against rioters after a day of violent clashes around the Polytechnic University. During the live video broadcast published on the police Facebook page, the spokesman Louis Lau said Protesters have been using a variety of lethal weapons against police officers and warned that they may start responding with deadly force.
Well, for the first time in a decade, Hong Kong is in the midst of a recession. That's according to official data released on Thursday. In an official statement, the government noted local social incidents took a heavy toll on consumption-related activities, subduing economic prospects, weighed on consumption and investment sentiment. The local social incidents refer to the ongoing protests. For over 5 months now, demonstrators have blocked streets, stormed government buildings, disrupted public transport and forced businesses to close. Chinese President Xi Jinping recently addressed the situation. In a speech, he reiterated his support for Hong Kong's police. President Xi also emphasized the need for Hong Kong to restore its economy and social order. CGTN sat down with Chris Adeyegu, a political lecturer at the University of Cape Town, who echoed President Xi's call for civilized dialogue.
I think this is the first time in 10 years that Hong Kong has had a recession. Tourists are staying away from the city. So it's not just people dying and there's chaos in the city, but the economy isn't doing too well. Hong Kong needs to rebuild. And the only way they can do that is if violence does come to an end. So I do support President Xi's statement. But with supporting the statement, I do recommend that there's more open dialogue from both the government and the people going forward.
To other news now. Unions leading a strike at South African Airways have vowed to intensify their demonstrations. NUMSA, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, held consultations with members of other aviation-related companies in a bid to start a secondary strike. These include airports company South Africa and supplier businesses like Bidvest. Angelo Coppola has more.
Of immediate concern is the maintenance and repair of the SAA fleet. This just weeks after 3 local airlines voluntarily grounded their fleets due to administration issues at SAA Technical.
We're warning passengers not to fly SAA while the strike is continuing. If they do so, they're literally putting their lives at risk. Those who are responsible for the safety of the plane, this includes safety officers in the form of cabin crew, as well as technicians who are our members at SAAT as well as at SALCA, are on strike.
Strikers include most, if not all, the senior qualified and experienced personnel at SAA Technical.
I'm a technician. If I do not sign off the aircraft with the proper qualifications, that aircraft must not fly. Yes. Where is SAA getting the authorities to release aircrafts when we are here?
Which, according to NUMSA, begs the question about what the Civil Aviation Authority of South Africa is doing about aircraft maintenance sign-offs.
SAA right now is depending on learners who have had very little flight experience. They cannot operate unsupervised. They're depending on them to do the work, the critical work of either safety officers or of repairing and maintaining the flights. This is absolutely unacceptable.
It's day 3 of the strike, and the unions are adamant, more so than they were the last 2 days, that they're going to take this strike and make it a national aviation strike, which could see the country plunged into chaos. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN at OR Tambo International Airport in South Africa.
Well, for more on this, we are now joined by Angelo Coppola, who is in Johannesburg for us. Angelo, what's the latest you have there?
Well, we're into day 4 of the strike. The domestic passengers that were using SAA are actually going on to other airlines and also the cheap option within SAA and using them to get around the country. NUMSA, as you know, has escalated their strike, calling for that secondary strike. We understand that NUMSA members have already obtained a strike certificate at Comair. There's a big representation of NUMSA members there. The union is also apparently talking to 15 other companies in the value chain within SAA, like the companies, the likes of the airports company, the Civil Aviation Authority, several other airlines, as well as security, catering and cleaning companies. Interestingly enough, NUMSA are at the moment in a meeting with South African Airways Technical, where they're talking about insourcing, because a large proportion of what SAA Technical is doing can be insourced. We'll get more information on that meeting once they've come out and briefed their members. So for now, SAA management have come out and said that there are no security or safety issues with the aeroplanes, but if SAA management are to be believed, the strike on day 4 has now cost the airline some $12 million. Karen?
And Angelo, international flights were due to resume on Sunday. One flight did take off. Does that mean international flights are back on schedule?
Well, apparently they are. In fact, yesterday there was only one flight scheduled to leave, and that was the flight to Sao Paulo in South America. It was delayed by a couple of hours. We're uncertain as to what the reason was for the delay, but we do understand that it might have had something to do with sign-off in terms of safety and maintenance on the plane that was due to leave, although SAA management aren't confirming that. We do understand, though, that management came out yesterday afternoon quite late, disputing any allegations of unsafe airplanes or unqualified people signing off on any of those jobs that needed to be done on those planes. So for now, the international part of SAA is up and running. Of course, the alliance partner airlines are all running as per normal. So SAA does rely on many of its alliance partners to do that international work for them. So as it stands right now, international is on the go, but the domestic airline is not functioning at all, and it's unlikely to change in the foreseeable future. Karen?
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was CG10's Angelo Coppola for us there in Johannesburg. Well, now let's discuss this further. We are now joined by Zola Batatu, a customer service agent at South African Airways. Thank you very much for joining us. There's still no end in sight to the crippling strike, is there?
Okay, they're going to talk to me now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'll ask the question again. Zola Batatu, there's no end, is there, to this crippling strike?
Actually, madam, there is no end. Actually, we haven't actually come to a rescue whereby the company went to apply for Section 150 at CCMA. We went and it was on Saturday then when we were sitting with the company. The company came with the same offer that was 5.9% with conditions that we cannot accept as workers of South African Airways.
And Zola, what do you think is the likely impact of the secondary strike on the aviation industry in the country?
Madam, I'll give you a brief idea whereby you can imagine yourself, whereby South Africa, NUMSA as the National Metal Workers Union at the Aviation is the most majority union to all companies that are operating at Aviation. I will count it's Bidvest, it's Swissport, it's this company, Ubuntu Clean Incorporate. It is AXA, the landlord of the airport. It is also the company called Refugee that is contracted with the South African Airways. So it will actually bring down the whole aviation to a standstill.
And Zola, let's talk about the demands. The striking workers are demanding an 8% wage increase, while the airlines is offering 8%. Is that a realistic? 5%, sorry. Is that a realistic demand?
Actually, madam, it is a realistic demand. First of all, let's not focus on 5.9%, on 8%. Let's focus on all demands that we have tabled with the company. First of all, the very big demand that we have demanded to the company after we have submitted the notice. The company has told that they are going to do the retrenchment. It is the one that I think it scares the workers if they're going to lose their jobs now. It is another demand that makes this big strike not come to an end. And also another demand that we have is that South African Airways board, it must be dissolved as well. We don't want to work with people who are stealing from the company.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That was Zola Batatu there, customer service agent at South African Airways. We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including French PM returns historic sword during visit to Dakar. And campaigning starts in Algeria for presidential vote amid mass protests.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference. Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's now turn to Senegal, where President Macky Sall and French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe met for the 4th intergovernmental seminar. Philippe was accompanied by 6 French ministers. As well as discussing a series of pressing issues, France repatriated a symbolic item of Senegalese history.
The French Prime Minister and Senegalese President Macky Sall met to delve into the issues of immigration and security in the Sahel. The meeting comes over a month after the French Parliament debated the topic of migration and after a series of militant attacks in Mali.
The terrible events that took place in Mali at the beginning of November show that the groups that claim to be part of the Islamic State are still resisting. France is present among its partners and its action is more determined than ever. We are convinced of the need for a broader partnership for security and stability in the Sahel to complement the efforts of the G5 Sahel.
During the meeting, a notable part of Senegalese history was also returned. The sword of El Hadji Umar Tall was returned back to the country. During the 19th century, Tall ruled over the Tukula Empire, which stretched over Senegal, Mali and Guinea. He also fought fiercely against the French colonial army.
By restoring the sword of El Hadji Omar Tall, an outstanding intellectual mystic, holy man and resistance fighter, whose refusal to submit symbolizes our common attachment, has a shared value: freedom.
The leaders also discussed Senegal's development programs. Chamwono, CGTN.
However, the return of El Hadj Umar Tall's sword is far from permanent. It remains in the collection Paris Museum of the Army. The sword is being loaned to Senegal for 5 years. French deputies will have to pass a law to repatriate the historic item fully. The army in Burkina Faso says it has killed over 30 armed men in 2 operations in the northern part of the country. The first raid took place in Yosala Forest, where the army said it killed 24 armed men and freed many women being kept as slaves. A soldier was also killed during the offensive. In the second raid in the area of Buzanga, the army killed 8 other suspected militants. It also seized large quantities of arms and ammunition. The 2 offensives against militants come less than a month after 40 employees of a Canadian mining company were killed in an ambush. Jihadist attacks in Burkina Faso have been on the rise since unrest began back in 2015. Algeria's presidential campaigns have officially kicked off. 5 candidates will contest the December 12 poll. However, protests have continued to call for the complete overhaul of the political system in the country. CGTN's Brian Toussaint reports.
Two former prime ministers, Ali Benflis and Ademaji Tebboune, are among those running in the December 12th election.
I am officially announcing the launch of our election campaign from the same stairs where I stood with the protesters of the popular movement during the first 10 weeks of the movement.
If we are looking out for the interests of our country, the ballot boxes will choose the president and are the best choice. Elections are the solution.
However, protests demanding a sweeping overhaul of a decades-old political system have been ongoing since February. Demonstrators say they don't trust those currently in power to ensure democratic elections.
We are here to say that elections won't happen. Elections won't happen until people decide they will. The people are the ones to decide when and how to organize an election.
We say that we must bring legitimacy to the highest levels of the state, and then we will enter into real dialogue, where real discussions will begin in order to reply fully to the demands of the Iraq social protest movement.
An election originally scheduled for July was postponed as a result of a lack of candidates. And now, billboards for campaign posters remain bare, as campaigns start with some graffitied with the names of activists detained in a crackdown on protesters. The Iraq opposition movement says it will not support any election until more senior officials stand aside, leaving the question of what will be the overall voter turnout. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
South Africa has one of the highest crime rates in the world, with more than 160,000 people behind bars. It offers an extensive rehabilitation program, but the Incarceration Nations Network says prison systems in South Africa and around the world are outdated, contributing further to violence in society. CGTN's Julie Shear has more.
Prison is no easy life. Globally, 11 million people are incarcerated. Many struggle to fit into society afterwards. The Incarceration Nations Network puts education at the heart of reform and preparing inmates for the outside world.
When you educate people and you offer people access to opportunities and to education, it ultimately benefits us all by building safer communities, by producing people who are going to contribute to society.
We're bringing on board skill acquisition programs that would train them in carpentry, craft making, so that when they come out, they are able to fit back into society, and then we avoid the case of recidivism.
The INN's Prison to College pipeline started in the US. It's been running at South Africa's Bredville prison for over a year.
Education for me is a compass. It has pointed me in the right direction.
Standing here before you today, I am empowered as an individual, as a person.
When I look at myself in the mirror today, I don't see a convict, right? Or an inmate, but someone who's been given a second chance in life.
Education is a powerful tool, and for those needing a second chance, it could be the catalyst to move away from a life of crime.
It has made a huge difference on the guys who are in prison and even to their families, because what happens is that when you transform an inmate, you also help their families to see them differently. You also be able to restore their self-esteem.
One of the organization's latest projects is a traveling exhibition of written work done by inmates.
It's an installation made of writing by people in prison around the world, including people incarcerated in South Africa. It will be going on a world tour, and the aim is to bring it to South Africa in 2020 for the 30th anniversary of Madiba's release from prison. And that is called The Writing on the Wall.
There's a direct correlation between education and a drop in repeat offenders. It's estimated there's more than 40% chance of ex-convicts moving on to a meaningful life if they're given the right tools. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
The United Nations High Commission for Refugees says it's facing a shortfall in critical funding for refugees in Ethiopia. According to the agency, it has received so far about $204 million from around $347 million required to meet food, education, health and accommodation needs. As of October, UNHCR registered over 700,000 asylum seekers in Ethiopia. About 70 million people are displaced worldwide, with Turkey hosting the highest number of refugees worldwide. Uganda hosts the largest number of refugees in Africa, and Ethiopia comes in a close second place. Staying with the issue of refugees, in Egypt, a charity organisation is providing free food for refugees in the country on a daily basis. The organisation also arranges a gathering every week where asylum seekers meet, have lunch and enjoy the day together. Our correspondent Yasser Hakim has more.
According to Egyptian authorities, there are about 5 million refugees in Egypt. 315,000 of them are registered with the UNHCR. Rizq Farouk owns a charity organization that provides food for the refugees.
We in Tegea provide a place for refugees to eat every day for free. We're in several cities, not just Cairo. Most who come to us are widows or divorcees with their children or men who don't have enough income. These segments are our main target.
Egypt refuses to establish refugee camps. It allows refugees to live amongst Egyptians, to work and even own small projects if they can. Many have had success. Others, not so fortunate, rely on initiatives such as this one for aid.
I have been in Egypt for 10 years and have settled down. I'm treated very well by Egyptians. I make henna, makeup for the skin and hair for women in weddings. I've been coming here for years. They treat us very well and help in anything we ask, not just food. They give us important support.
Rizq Farouk is a businessman. A portion of his income is spent on charity work, but he also accepts donations to help him expand.
My dream is to be everywhere for the refugees. I am slowly making it a reality. We started 5 years ago with once a week in one place. Now we are every day in several locations. We serve from 500 to 1,000 people in each location per day. My target is to provide food every day in every city in Egypt, all over the country.
The refugees don't just come here to eat. They meet and socialize with others. And the organization also provides job opportunities when needed.
I was offered a job here at the organization. I help in reaching out to the refugees to see what they need to help solve any problems they face. I also help in distributing food to the ones who are unable to come for health reasons.
Most of the registered refugees in Egypt are from Africa, especially Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and other African countries. But there's a large Syrian presence as well, around 500,000.
I've heard about this service from Syrian friends. When I came, I was impressed with what they were offering, the quality and kindness they provide. I hope they reach more people.
Rizq Farouk says his future plan is to set up branches outside Egypt. He wants to serve refugees throughout the continent. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Chirping of birds, sounds of whispering trees, burbling of streams. When sunlight sets the forest's leaves aglow, and waterfall surges down from the mountain, we see and hear the Earth's wondrous beauty. The Earth is meant to be appreciated, and the life of its inhabitants deserves our endless exploration. Come with CGTN to listen and see, in chorus of life, to marvel at nature and life.
of the business news coming up for you after the break, including Ethiopia Airlines puts Boeing 737 MAX orders on hold. And the IMF agrees to restore funding to the DR Congo.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Ethiopian Airlines has put on hold its order for 20 more deliveries of the 737 MAX. The jet has been grounded worldwide in the wake of crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. The airline CEO, Tewode Gebremariam, says they are yet to make a decision on the deliveries. Boeing, for its part, has revised the software system to prevent repeated nosedives. The airplane maker is awaiting the approval of US and global regulators before putting the plane back in service. Investigations into the March 10th crash in Ethiopia and a Lion Air accident in Indonesia suggest the accidents were caused by an automated system error after takeoff. 346 people died in the two crashes. Although Ethiopian Airlines has more than 20 Boeings on order, they say they may add further orders for the Airbus A350. That's a Boeing rival. Meanwhile, Boeing says that it's working closely with regulators to make the necessary changes to the grounded 737 MAX aircraft. CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Stan Deal, told the press ahead of the Dubai Air Show that they continue to make progress. The FAA, which has been widely criticized for entrusting certification of important systems of the aircraft to Boeing, has promised a thorough review before recertification. Early last week, the FAA said it expected the airplane to resume flying in January, delaying its return by 1 month.
As we look to the future, though, we're working hard, guided by the regulators, to make improvements and changes to the airplane, to make changes to the training of the aircraft, so that the airplane can safely return to service. I can tell you we're working towards those goals, but ultimately the schedule for all of those activities will be determined by the regulators.
The International Monetary Fund and the Democratic Republic of Congo's government have agreed to a financial assistance package. The deal would allow the IMF to resume lending to Congo for the first time in almost 8 years. The IMF suspended its last aid to Congo, worth more than $500 million, over lack of transparency in the sale of state mining assets. The fund says that the terms of the rapid credit facility would be submitted to the IMF board in mid-December for final approval. As part of the deal, Congolese authorities agreed to reforms that will reinforce economic stability. Congo's central bank governor said he expected the program to be worth about $370 million. South Africa's platinum sector has signed an historic 3-year wage deal after months of negotiations. It comes as welcome relief that talks were concluded behind closed doors without protracted strike action. The platinum industry employs over 160,000 people who earn a total of $3.5 billion. 2014 was the last time workers downed tools, halting production for 5 months and bringing the economy to its knees. Angelo Coppola has more.
There was jubilation as well as relief when the $400 million wage deal was signed for the next 3 years. It comes after months of intense negotiations between unions and South Africa's 3 main platinum producers, Anglo, Impala and Sibanye-Stillwater.
We are absolutely pleased at the outcome of the wage negotiations. It has been a grueling, very long process. However, throughout the process, the engagements were very cordial, collaborative, constructive, and really underpinned by mutual respect.
We have gotten a deal for our workers that we believe is fair, we believe it's sustainable, we believe that it is in the best interest of the business as well as the workers, and it didn't come with long protracted strike action.
AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa, who championed the fight for fair wages for the last decade, has described it as a small victory for the 160,000 workers employed in the platinum sector.
One cannot say I'm feeling happy. The gap of inequality in South Africa is still vast. We haven't even dented the inequality in South Africa, but we are in the right trajectory, to change the lives of the workers.
The deal will bring some stability to the sector, but its woes are far from over. Weak demand, declining productivity and rising electricity prices are adding pressure to the bottom line. 36,000 jobs were lost in the second quarter of this year, and many more are at risk.
Insofar as the restructuring of our organisation is concerned, it is very, very unfortunate. We're busy going through that consultation process at the moment, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll find some alternatives to actually reduce the number of job losses.
If the workers are not killed underground, are not contracting these diseases, occupational diseases, they are facing retrenchment. It presents a good opportunity to change the status quo, to revolutionize every economic policies.
Matunjwa says South Africa's challenges go deeper than the mining sector. He says capitalism is failing the country and issued a stark warning to government to address poverty and unemployment, or it will have a revolution on its hands. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Let's now take a look at Chinese monetary policy. The People's Bank of China unexpectedly trimmed a key interbank lending rate earlier today. The move was the first easing in China's short-term lending rate in more than 4 years. The PBOC said that it was lowering its 7-day reverse repurchase rate by 5 basis points to 2.5%. The action lifted China's bond market and comes just 2 weeks after the central bank cut the rate on its medium-term lending facility loans by the same margin. Analysts say the unexpected reduction shows that the PBOC is keen to ease investor worries. That's as the markets fret that higher inflation might prevent the central bank from delivering fresh stimulus measures. Meanwhile, the central bank said in a new quarterly report released on Saturday that the government's macro policies are having an effect. CGTN reporter Mark Kerr has the details.
Despite consumer inflation hitting an almost 6-year high last month, China's central bank isn't planning any drastic steps just yet. However, a quarterly report said it would monitor various indicators to allay concerns that it could rise further.
The report specifically rules out any kind of stimulation on the property market. It says the government will continue to use long-term measures to stabilize house prices instead of using a kick, which might only have a short-term effect.
The quarterly report says China had no foundation for persistent inflation. It adds that China is one of the few major economies maintaining a prudent stance. The People's Bank of China also promised a stable RMB exchange rate to support cross-border trade and investment. It says a mechanism for the issuance of RMB bills in Hong Kong would continue to improve. Domestically, the report says that China's central bank also plans to carry on with the interest rate reforms based on the shifting of the benchmark lending rate. Mark, CGTN in Beijing.
Saudis keen to own part of state oil giant Aramco have been streaming into local banks at the start of a long-delayed share sale that could be the world's biggest initial public offering. Saudi Aramco is worth up to $1.7 trillion at the price range set by the oil giant on Sunday. The figure is below the $2 trillion sought by Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Retail investors will be able to buy up to 0.5%, that's about $8.5 billion worth of shares. Prince Salman, who floated the idea nearly 4 years ago, is seeking to raise billions of dollars to invest in non-oil industries, create employment and diversify the world's top crude exporter away from oil.
We are very optimistic because this morning just announced the range of the prices, which is between 30 and 32 riyals. per share, and we are very optimistic there will be a lot of participation.
Aramco company is the crown jewel of the investment in Saudi Arabia and a safe company to invest in and the biggest company in the world. Thank God. It is a good opportunity that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman gave us the chance to subscribe to be partners in this success.
The International Auto and Automotive Technology Exhibition opened this week in Tunisia. Many Chinese automakers are exhibiting their latest models for the Tunisian and the African market in general. CG10's Adnan Shoashi brings us this report.
The event is organized by the Tunis International Fairs Company in partnership with the Tunisian Automotive Association and the Technical Center for Mechanical and Electrical Industries and the Ministry of Industry.
Chinese automakers are the guests of this special edition. Chinese cars are sold everywhere around the globe because they are safe and use the latest technology.
Many consumers have booked their Chinese cars from local dealers. Tunisians have cited compelling reasons for opting for made-in-China auto brands.
I have bought a Chinese car from the fair. There's no difference between German, French and Chinese cars in terms of safety and comfort. The made in China is a guarantee of international standards, design and quality.
Auto experts assert that Chinese cars are gaining in popularity in the Tunisian and African markets.
The quality of materials, the competitive price, the options, as well as the availability make Chinese cars a good alternative to traditional automakers in the region and the African market.
Tunisia Automotive Exhibition has brought together nearly 90 Tunisian and foreign exhibitors, more than 5,000 professional visitors, including a significant number of international dealers from the Maghreb, Arab, African countries and China. Chinese car manufacturers have developed several partnership agreements with Tunisian companies to produce and distribute their products. According to the Minister of Industry, Tunisia aims to become a platform for the manufacture and export of Chinese cars. Adnan Shoashi, CGTN, Tunis.
After the break, a look at the just concluded 9th edition of the Africa International Film Festival in Lagos in Nigeria.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
The 9th edition of the Africa International Film Festival has ended in the Nigerian coastal city of Lagos. The event brought some of the biggest names in film production from across Africa. Here's CG10's Deji Badmus.
Participants at the Africa International Film Festival are in for a big treat. In all, 150 films from various categories would be screened at the festival. Around 96 of them would be competing for awards. And for the opening night, the organizers chose For Sama, a 100-minute-long documentary by award-winning Syrian journalist Waad Al-Khatib. The documentary captures the harrowing tale of the 2016 Aleppo bombings in Syria. Since it debuted in 2010, AFRIF has continued to expand, becoming one of Africa's biggest film festivals. Last year, the festival received entries from over 50 countries, but that figure has more than doubled this year.
We received 4,000 submissions. Out of the 4,000, we actually had more Nigerian movies. We had over 400 Nigerian movies. But you know, we get films from 138 countries. and some are not selected, but it's nothing personal. It's just that we've got to whittle down 4,000 to 150.
Apart from providing a platform to showcase excellence in African cinemas, Afrive is also using this year's festival to address the issue of gender balance in the African film industry.
The theme this year is Sheroes, so we're celebrating all the women out there. That's why we opened with a documentary by a female filmmaker. So it's going to be a great week of movies, education, knowledge sharing, discussions. So we're going to have master classes, we're going to have student training, we're going to have industry sessions.
Excited by the theme of the festival, some Nigerian actors say there could be no better platform than Afrive to promote female gender empowerment in African films.
We have so many people that want to be part of Nollywood. For example, in Nigeria alone. And they always tell you, oh, there are just very few of you that are behind the scene that are actually working as women. And I'm always saddened by that because a lot can be done. A lot can be done. And I love that that's the theme.
We can never de-emphasize the whole women empowerment. We need more women to get out there and do great things because we have been sidelined for a long time. So it's like it's our time, it's our year, it's our season to push and be great.
Nigeria's Nollywood is the biggest film industry in Africa and the second in the world next to India's Bollywood. Afrive, through its seminars and masterclasses, is looking to harness the full potential of the multi-million industry and make it a global brand. Ejibadmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
All the sports news coming up for you after the break, including thousands filled the streets of Addis Ababa for this year's Great Ethiopian Run.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
More than 45,000 Ethiopians participated in this year's Great Ethiopian Run in Addis Ababa on Sunday. The 10-kilometre street event aims to promote good causes, nurture professional expertise in organising races, promote sport, tourism, and also to create a platform for young and upcoming athletes. CGTN's Guram Chala has more now from Ethiopia's capital.
This is the Great Ethiopian Run, packed every year with several categories of runs, from elite athletes to charity and other events. This year, like other years, the main event of both male and female professional athletes was glorious, the competition intense. Then on the men race, Barihu Arga finished the 10 kilometers first in 28 minutes 22 seconds 18, and it was Yalam Zaf Yohalo who was victorious at a time of 31 minutes 54 25 seconds in the female category.
I had goals of finishing this race in the third place, not first. All the athletes here were strong competitors. In the end, I have given it all that I have, and I have finished first. I am happy.
Last year, I stood fifth. This year, however, after a tough year long work, I have managed to stand first. I am excited.
Most of the local 45,000 people and the foreigners were running for a cause or just for fun. Some were creative to excite or educate. For all, however, this was memorable beyond words.
In simple terms, this is a uniting event.
This great run is all about beauty and togetherness. Ethiopia is recognized for its skilled athletes, but beyond that, this has showcased the feelings of the people.
Togetherness and love. This is what I felt today. We want more of these kinds of fun events.
The organizers say the Great Run is more than an event, it's a race or fun.
This year, we have started Flings things 6 weeks ahead of the main event. We had, for instance, Road Safety Day, Volunteers Day, and we have organized training for members every week. We did a lot to give back to the community.
More than 500 international participants from over 20 countries, including professional athletes from Eritrea, Kenya and Uganda, have taken part in this year's Great Ethiopian Run. Kenya's Helen Obiri was the guest of honor. Group Dara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
To some football news now. Uganda Cranes managed to beat Malawi 2-0 to go joint top of Group B of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The East African Giants are hoping to make it a third